This is what we sort of typically do. We go along, this is a first pass with the plough, and in a paddock that hasn't been touched with a plough for maybe 100 years, when it was first turned into agriculture from forest. And you get a bit of a release. You get a bit more land actually, straight away. You get a bit more surface area. Can you see how there's a bit of a flat area in between there? And so you can imagine that's still a bit compacted. And so if we get a bit of a rain burst, what water doesn't infiltrate down that groove actually runs along there, because now we've actually started to create these little earth banks that guide the movement of runoff water over the site. Now we do it in such a pattern that falls towards the ridge from the valley, and in doing so actually moves away from what nature would have it, which is where water falls at 90 degrees to a contour and always makes its way to a valley and creates deep soils there and puts all the water there at the cost of the water and soil of the ridges. So we do the opposite. We actually send the water that would normally go to the valley out to the ridge, just by the angle of ploughing. It's pretty easy. I do it by what I call the seat of the pants. And all of you here, I'm sure, could manage it, because I'm pretty sure that all of your internal gyroscopes are calibrated such that you know when you're going up a hill or down a hill. Am I correct in assuming that? That's basically the technique we use here. When we're driving, we get in a valley and then we feel like we've sort of touched, this is as touchy-feely as I get, you feel like you're falling towards the ridge. So, and then once you get out onto the ridge, you feel like you're staying pretty level. And then when you drive up into the valley, you feel like you're rising. And so in your wake, you've got these plough lines that are distributing that water whenever it falls. So if we're rising, then that means we're going up, which means that something's going to be going down, and so on and so forth. Very easy stuff. I don't need to sell Yeoman's bloody ploughs. There's a few other ploughs out there that do a similar job. You've got plenty of machines here. There's nothing as good as a Yeoman's plough, there's no doubt about that. But you can sort of get away with using a few other bits and pieces that are around. This is one of them. You can even use an old chisel plough. This is for those of you who don't know, this is a chisel plough. You've probably got one of these in your backyard, one of those little hoe things, little prongs. That's a backyard chisel plough. This is just one that's pulled by a tractor. And then you've got another non-inversion plough. They make a bit of a mess, but that's what Louis Bromfield used. They were invented by Graham Home in Texas, and they work extremely well. They just create a rough surface. You can build soil with them. Lovely stuff. You can see I'm very elaborate with my equipment. My next book, actually my first book, will be on 101 ways to use plastic 55-gallon drums. I'm trying to push the boundary there. I love the things. As like I said, I'm a big fan of plastic. All right, now we have to break the compaction, and that sort of shows in a very poor drawing what happens. And you sort of get this around the point of the plough, you get a lot of release of the compaction. And what it does is if we've got any soil life in that top part of the soil, it actually will fall down the groove and almost inoculate the inert subsoil. The only difference, as I say, between subsoil and topsoil is life. Subsoil is inert material. It doesn't have any life. So all we have to do is just use that mineral soil and add some life to it, aka organic matter or organisms, and then convert material into organic matter, and now we've got a living soil. And now we've got something that's pretty good. and that stores carbon and is a very, very, very stable source of carbon. You know, humus molecules will last for 5,000 years. Now, think about that compared to so-called geosequestration as a means of injecting carbon dioxide from coal-powered or coal power stations. You put that stuff in the ground. I mean, how stable is that going to be? Yeah, it's just a no-brainer to make soil to do this stuff. It's all there. It's very, oh God, I don't know. Anyway, I've got a few other bits and pieces just to convince you further about the need to act, just aside from everything else, as far as agriculture is concerned.